Hello, I'm Sri. CBTU presents a course on MySQL database. Section MySQL Workbench Graphical User Interface for MySQL. It's a visual database design tool. Agenda for this session. Let us know what is MySQL Workbench, understand MySQL Workbench 8.0, its features, download and install, start MySQL Workbench, and feature navigation. Graphical user interface for any software is good as it simplifies many things. MySQL Workbench is a graphical user interface, a visual database design tool for MySQL servers and databases. It integrates SQL development, administration, database design, creation and maintenance into a single IDE. It is the successor to DB Designer 4 and replaces previous package of the software MySQL GUI Tools bundle. This is the web page of MySQL Workbench. This is most useful tool for database architects, developers, and DBAs. MySQL Workbench is available on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS X. Design and development. You can visually design, model, generate, and manage databases, create, execute, and optimize SQL queries, administer the database, and perform database migrations. Let us go to the downloads page. As we discussed, MySQL Workbench is an integrated development environment IDE for database design and modeling, SQL development, database administration, and migration. These are the prerequisites to install MySQL Workbench on Windows, Microsoft .NET Framework 4.5, and Visual C++ redistributable for Visual Studio 2015. MySQL Workbench 8.0 is available for all these operating systems. It can be installed standalone when you want to manage the MySQL Server databases. The recommended product is MySQL Installer for Windows. This will install all MySQL products for all Windows platforms. This comes in one package and available for both 32-bit and 64-bit. When you want to practice MySQL Server, this product is recommended. Click. This is the download page for the MySQL installer. This includes all these products: MySQL Server, MySQL Connectors, MySQL Workbench, and all these. You can choose Web Installer or Standalone Installer. The standalone is 373 MB in size. So this we have downloaded and installed on our system. This installation we are covering in another session. And let us see the features of MySQL Workbench. MySQL Workbench is available in 3 editions. Community Edition. This is open source under GPL license. And Commercial Editions, Standard and Enterprise. These are the features of Community Edition: Visual SQL development, database administration, performance tuning, and all these. Community Edition also has many features supported. When you are using this workbench in production, you may go for the commercial edition as per the need. This is install page. Once MySQL Workbench is installed, it can be started from the start menu. After installing MySQL MSI installer, it installs all these products. Select MySQL Workbench, it opens MySQL Workbench. Or search for the installation path and click on MySQL Workbench to start MySQL Workbench. This is about DB Designer 4, which was predecessor for MySQL Workbench. In 2018, first release is launched. We have seen that Workbench is available as Community Edition and Commercial Edition. And we are going to navigate MySQL Workbench now. Enter. This is the welcome page of MySQL Workbench. Let us delete this connection. This is MySQL Workbench home screen. It will show all the MySQL connections. Let us see Workbench preferences and fine tune if required. First option is about general editors. Leave defaults. Indentation which is required for the Python language, that is helpful here. The tab key will insert spaces instead of tabs. Leave default for now. SQL editor. We have subsections here. Query editor. This is keep alive interval 600 seconds. This is fine. Let us keep these defaults. Query editor. Leave default. Object editors. So we will tweak the parameters when we require. We can go with the default options unless we have any specific requirement. SQL execution. Maximum query length to store in history 65k bytes. New connections use auto commit mode. Leave default checked and select query results. Rows count to be limited to 1000. Check this. Leave it default along with other defaults. Administration. This MySQL Workbench is installed along with the MySQL installer for Windows. That's a bundled package. So we can leave the default. If you have installed standalone, you can configure path to the MySQL dump tool and path to MySQL tool. For now, we can leave both default. Export directory for MySQL dumps. Let us change this. This is the path I have set for the export directory. Modeling preferences. Autosave model interval. Leave default. Column defaults, primary key and foreign key. Leave defaults. MySQL. This is a bundled version and the default target MySQL version is 8.0.11. So leave default. This MySQL Workbench 8.0 supports MySQL versions 5.6 and above. If you have any other versions installed, you can change this default target MySQL version if there is any specific purpose. For now, let us leave default. Model table defaults. Leave default storage engine InnoDB. These are the other options available. Leave these defaults for forward engineering and synchronization. Diagram. These options apply to model related diagrams. Leave defaults. Appearance. You can change the color and fonts as required. Leave defaults here as well. This is SSH, Secure Shell Configuration Options. You can leave these defaults. You can set path to the SSH configuration file and known host file. Leave default. Others. If you want welcome message on connection screen, you can check this. For now, we don't need. Timeout for migration. Leave default. URL location to display geometry point. This is for location reference. The default URL is OpenStreetMap. If you want, you can change it to Google Maps. And to run multiple instances of MySQL Workbench, you can check this. For now, we don't need. And log level. The default is set at info. These are the other options. These are from the lowest to the highest. None, error, warning, info, and debug levels 1, 2, 3. Leave default, and when we need different log level, we can change this and watch for the logs. We made some changes. Let us save the changes. Okay. And MySQL Workbench logs. Let us locate the log files. Under help, click locate log files. The location of the log files is user, app data, roaming, MySQL, Workbench, and logs folder. In the Workbench, you have other folders, the cache, libraries, modules, snippets, SQL history, and SQL workspaces, and other files. Log files. MySQL Workbench start and execution of other SQL actions are stored under this directory, workbench/log. The file name is WB. Debug information is generated when MySQL Workbench is started and unexpectedly terminated or stopped. The log file rotates like this. WB file, Workbench log file is renamed to WB.1 and previous WB.1 is renamed as WB.2. Like this, it maintains 9 log files. Let us see this log file. We can view the log file from here or from help, show log file. It opened in the notepad and it's not readable. We can use log readers or open in any other text editor. So let us open in Notepad Plus. This is the latest log file. The timestamp, path information, and all the system information, warnings and information. We'll make some changes and watch the logs, and we'll come back to this later. All the SQL execution history without data, without results, is being stored in SQL history, and the latest one being this. We can open in text editor. This is the command that is run. In the previous ones, all the history can be seen here. Cache folder contains cached files. This stores column widths and cache information. Custom modules, scripts, and snippets are stored here. We don't have any. These are the snippets used by SQL editor. We can save our custom snippets also here. And these snippets, DB management, DDL statements, DML statements, these are bundled with the MySQL Workbench. Let us see what it contains. This is SQL DML statements. This is all the syntax. These commands are helpful while using Workbench. Workspace information is saved to this workspaces directory. This contain any custom libraries. Okay, back to Workbench. This is part 1 of the MySQL Workbench features. In the next session, that is part 2, we are going to cover more features of MySQL Workbench. Thanks for watching.